I'm out here in the Nevada desert. Yes, lots of desert. And decided I was going to use my little everyday carry knife and some flint and steel I found in my emergency backpack. I'm going to build a fire. Just because, you know, it's kind of a fun place to build one. If it doesn't happen, you know, it's a desert, so everything's super dry. I don't expect this to be, you know, trying to light a fire on the literal coast of Washington or something, but you know, it's fun. So, this is just some old wood that I found kind of over by like a dilapidated post office kind of place. So yeah, there's lots of this kind of old like fence post cedar kind of stuff, right? So we got plenty of fuel here. It's bigger stuff if we even get that far, but this is just for fun, so not a big deal. So usually if we were cooking like around this, maybe we'd pick like, you know, a more natural spot, but this is kind of out of the way, and I don't really want to make a giant deal of it. So we just got one of these old-fashioned fire steels. Old-fashioned, I guess they're new-fashioned. I'm not a giant fan of these, but figured we'd try this out a little bit. So while we're working, I'll tell you about a fun conversation I had on the phone as I was driving out to this location. A guy called me up and proceeded to say he was from, I forget what he, you know, spoiler alert, he was a scammer. But he said he was from, you know, the Windows Security Department or the Windows Service Department or whatever these guys say. And thought I was, and immediately when I understood what the call was, which is fairly soon, because I mean, public service announcement people, but no one from the security department of Windows ever gives you a call. They don't care about calling you, right? They have like millions and millions and millions, like maybe even in the billions of users. So no, they're not going to give you a call. And so, you know, I figure out pretty quick this guy is a scammer, and so I take on my old person voice as quickly as I can to sound feeble, and long story short, I ended up keeping this guy on the line for like 25 minutes, just making sure that, you know, oh, well, I'm old, so every key press is going to take me a long time. And then I had to let my cat out, and so finally when I was, you know, getting close to like where I was hoping to do my video today, I was like, oh, well, where are you guys calling from? And, you know, California, where do you say? Oh, San Francisco. I don't know if he was calling from San Francisco or not. I kind of doubt it. But I, you know, was like, oh, okay, wonderful. Like, I have a granddaughter out there, and ooh, there's your tip test. Nice. I have a granddaughter out there, and do you have a grandmother, child? And, you know, ask this young man, you know, if he had a grandmother, and he said, oh no, you know, and clearly, like, it was hilarious because this guy was getting very annoyed with me, right? Like you could hear his frustration. As far as a professionalism of customer service call, 0 out of 5 would not be scammed again. But yeah, this oh, it was great. This guy, you know, says, oh, I got a grandma, but you know, she's been dead 2 years. I don't know if she's been dead 2 years, but But then and then I go, well, how would your grandmother feel? And then I go into my normal voice and go like, if she knew if you were scamming people out of their money. And he's like, and he didn't know what to do, right? He was like, well, ma'am, I mean, let's get back to, so clearly he was not understanding what I was saying to him. And then I had to like spell it out for him of like, dude, I'm 34 years old. You've been talking to me the whole time. I am not an old woman. I program computers for a day job, so I know exactly what's going on here. And you guys ought to be ashamed of yourself. So of course they proceed to like feel stupid and then go on. I mean, they're trying to insult me and I'm just laughing the whole time. They're like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? Like, oh, you must have lady parts because you're changing your voice. Shame on you, sir. I'm going, sure, cool. Whatever keeps you on the line so that you you aren't scamming other old people or young people or anyone who might fall for that scam. Because, sadly, like, it must work to some degree, otherwise people would stop doing it. So, anyhow, that was the fun that I had on my way out here to do this. So, it's funny, that wood has like a really nice smell to it. I probably don't have enough shavings located at the right spot here. My rock is also a little precarious and the striker's not good, but these are excuses. So usually after like 2 or 3 times, if it has not started yet, you're doing something wrong. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go get some better tinder. So swipe right for better tinder. This is where it gets interesting, because when you're out here in the desert, desert, right? Like, I realize some people may not find this a desert. I grew up in Western Washington, so any place that's drier than that is a desert to me. But we got some interesting stuff here, right? This is like an old cactus, I believe. Right, so this has always like interesting like husk that leaves behind. But it's more stick-like, right? Dry and snappy, but I don't know how well that would catch fire. So, on we go. Man, these little, growing up in Western Washington, these little cacti were certainly not around in the wild. And why I miss Western Washington, these little cacti are so cool. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm on the moon when I get to see cacti, out growing in the wild. It's so cool to me. I actually think, now that I think about it, let's get down here and make sure we can see this. I'm going to grab a bunch of these. This plant is definitely dead. Right? You hear how it breaks off nice and dry, snappy like. So I'm going to gather a bunch of these little twigs, usually in places with pine trees, right? You can gather similar twigs, right? The snappy parts of pine trees, and get a little bundle of sticks. Okay, now we got some twigs. We got this little bundle of grass. Ooh, fancy shot in the sunshine. So yeah, we're gonna see what this can get us. Because why not? Okay. So we're back with some more of our stuff, right? And I certainly profess to be no expert in this, but I've lit a few fires in my day, and honestly, I don't think it's that hard, and that anyone can get there. But the biggest thing I still have to deal with is that I rush it, right? I try to get too much. Basically, I start with like this, right? I'm going, oh, okay, cool, this will be enough, and I just like boosh, okay, go, fire. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it does, but sometimes, you know, like the rest of the time, I guess, it does not. So I'm gonna try to have a little bit more of this bundle of dry grass, see if that will get it. And then we'll move on to some of like the bigger things, maybe our little bundle of desert plant. Yep. Looks promising. Right. And again, I picked kind of an oddball place, like this fire on the side of the mountain. Don't. No, that's smoke on the water. So, funny story, when I started playing bass guitar, that was like the first thing my dad wanted me to play. We grabbed his old 8-track system, and we started playing Smoke on the Water. And I couldn't play it because I had trouble playing 3 notes that sounded good together. Well, that's not why he came. There you go, boom. Fire in the desert. That's pretty cool, right? And again, just to be like clear, this is like a little like wash ravine thing. So we're not gonna burn anything down out here. And yeah, so kind of enjoyable. So to me, in case anyone is sitting there like watching this and going, who cares, right? Why make a fire in the desert? It's hot. Like I am sitting next to the fire in the smoke, and it is not cold outside. I mean, this was just, I'm at like a family function, and I just wanted to get a break, right? So something I do really enjoy about the idea of like wilderness survival, bushcraft, and all that stuff. I love that it forces you to think, to be like, to show some ingenuity, right? And the idea that like you have the theory of how to start fire, but when you get out into the real world and you have some like applied theory, you realize that there's a big difference between theoretical knowledge and applied knowledge. And I mean, a couple years ago, I remember trying to start a fire in a little bit of a drizzle on a camping trip with the same thing I use today. And my daughter, I still remember her going, Dad, let's just go back. You don't know what you're doing. And that was a humbling experience, right? But times like that, right, when you get humbled, you could either be mad about it, you could be irritated, and I mean, you know, I wasn't loving it. But it did kind of go, it did have me stop and go, well, wait a second here. You think you know how to make a fire, but learn about this. What do you really need to do to like conquer this and go from theoretical knowledge to applied knowledge, right? To me, that's kind of the difference between intelligence and wisdom, right? Intelligence is knowing like how things work, which is good, right? You need to understand how some of this works and going, you know, so you're not trying to like start a giant log on fire with a match. But in addition to that, there's the wisdom, right? Of going, okay, well, how do you apply your knowledge? How do you understand what you're doing? And to me, that is what making a fire and doing that and being able to do that in lots of different places, to me, that's what that is all about. And I love doing that. I mean, yeah, okay, starting fires, like, it's fun, but it's really the challenge of like, okay, let's see what you could do with like, you know, you don't have matches, you don't have a stovetop. Let's see what you could still accomplish. And that to me is a lot of fun. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see. It's just another random Neil Oler video. To get the right angle here, I can look like it's like heavenly rays coming from my eyes. So as I was going back to my car, I don't even know if you can hear me right now, but I got to stand by a train. Ooh, I started filming at like the end of that, right? That's kind of an interesting rush. And a train that, I mean, it looked like it was hauling coal, right? So I'm not in love with coal as far as like an environmental thing, right? It's not the greatest, but I don't know. I think sometimes if we're rushing into the future without at least appreciating why people did things in the past and where previous generations are coming from and what they're doing, and why they think the way they do, I think we're missing out on a great piece of understanding. And again, I'm all for like solar powered stuff and like, you know, bring on like fuel efficiency and electronic whatevers, right? Sounds great. You'd never know I'd have a electrical engineering degree, would you? But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a different experience to stand like this close to the rails and feel it like rumbling the ground, and you understand why the iron horse or whatever was kind of an interesting thing, and kind of almost like the strange relic of a bygone era that we still rely upon a ton today in the infrastructure of America. So kind of interesting.